Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Outdo Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the GP Quebec. This starts tomorrow, and I think it's late on in the evening, kind of UK European time, so hopefully there's enough time for you guys to all make your teams. Apologies for not having a Coppa Sabatini video. The start list was announced very late, and therefore I just didn't get a video out in time, so hopefully we all got through there relatively well. And in terms of the Grand Prix Cycliste de Quebec, it is slightly different this year. I've read that the approach by going up to the finish line is slightly different, but we do have the Côte de la Montagne, 600 meters at 8.8%. I've read like a kilometer at, or like 800 meters at 10% as well, and then it kind of drags up to the line at about 3%. We're all very accustomed to this. It usually comes down to a reduced sprint amongst punchers, versatile sprinters, climbers. Kind of everybody gets involved in this race, and you don't generally see a solo attacker winning, but Pogačar is on the start list, so he might have something to say about that. But even despite his best efforts last year, he was 7th place, and I think it was one of the only races in the year where I didn't pick Pogačar. It's 216 kilometers long, 2,645 meters of climbing, and so that makes it a little bit easier than the Britannia Classic, and I think it's those sorts of riders I'm mainly looking at for putting onto my team and who I'm going to be recommending. But nonetheless, Pogačar is here, and I think he will certainly go on my Montreal team. But for this one, I'm not too sure. I think for 34 credits, Pogačar is not a guaranteed podium finish in this race. I think he's got a high chance of it, but there are many riders who you can get for cheaper, and you can sort of try and get a team of 6 people who might try and finish all inside the top 10 rather than trying to bank everything on Pogačar. But I still think that he is the safe pick, and going with him is still a very viable strategy. Wow, I'm less certain about. The only other time I can remember him being in this race was in 2022. He finished in 4th place and then finished 2nd place in Montreal. And that was in 2022 Wout van Aert, who was almost indestructible, let's face it, off of his incredible Tour de France that year. And I just don't think we've really seen that from Wout this year, so I'm less inclined to go with Wout, personally. But, you can still go with him. I still think he's a top 10, maybe a top 5, but in terms of value for money, probably not the best. I think De Lee is the safe pick to be going with. I am fairly certain. Yeah, he is just very suited to this race. He's that kind of versatile sprinter. He can sprint for like 500 meters. I reckon his 30-second power is just off the charts. So I think De Lee is the safe pick to be going with. And yeah, that's pretty much all you have to say about him. Binny is consistent in this race. He's been on a podium, and he's had some decent form recently in the Renew Tour, in the ADAC Classic, in Britannia Classic as well. So I think that Binny is still a good choice, but like I said earlier, there are riders who are cheaper, who might be 16, 14, 12 credits, who are also going to be in the same ballpark. So you can definitely go with Binny, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. But you might, you're going to end up having to pick some 6s and 4s who you might not want to have to pick. Alaphilippe, I think he's better for Montreal, but he'll still be up there, probably snagging a top 15. So is Arambarou, to be honest with you. Benoit and Laporte I see as working for Wout van Aert, so I probably wouldn't go with them. Madouas probably not. Matthews is a good choice. He was, came back strong after that heart palpitation that he had a couple of months ago, so which is really good to see. Matthews is very good in this race. He won it last year, if I remember correctly, so I think that he is a very nice choice for a lot of teams. Mohoric probably not. Paulus got that ill-timed puncture at Maryland Classic, but he was good in San Sebastian, so his form's clearly there. He should be leading EF in this race, but like I've said, there are probably better choices further down. Velens and Adam Yates, these are just kind of expensive domestiques for Pogačar, in my opinion. Bettiol is a top 10 candidate for sure, as is Bilbao. All these guys are it's hard to pick out specific people, just because they could all on their day, through a slightly better position, through a little bit of luck, a little bit of better teamwork, can all kind of outdo each other. I would say that Bilbao's got a lot of competition in the Bauer and Victorious camp, and they say that he is going to be, a leader for this race, but I just don't think he's got the out-and-out sprint. I think that Bettiol's a slightly better choice for this price range. No to Pollitt and Sivakov. Skelmoser obviously crashed in Maryland Classic. Don't know how he's doing, but in theory he is, a pretty good choice. Probably better for Montreal, more of a, just doesn't have that sprint really for this finale. Corbin Strong has been on the podium of this race before in 2023. He didn't finish the race last year. I can't exactly remember why. I think he must have been ill or something. But Corbin Strong is again a very good choice. He, Corbin Strong, DeLee, Binney, all good choices to be going with. Nice and safe. Simon Yates, I might be more tempted for Montreal for sure. Narvaez obviously gives UE Team Emirates a second option if they decide to not go with Pogacar for some wild reason. But Narvaez is an interesting choice nonetheless. Then into the 16 credit riders. Adria, I see him as being the best option for Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. They've also got Piffy, so maybe it could be for him as well. But Adria, I think, has shown slightly more consistent form over the last couple of months. I think Lamperty will be the sprinter for Soudal Quickstep. He was just outside the top 10 in this race last year. Tobias Harlan Johannesson, again, one who's slightly better for Montreal, but could get a top 10 here as well. Like I mentioned, Piffy could be a more of a differential pick if you decide to go with him, but there are some safer picks who are 14 credits, like Godon, Hermans, Laurence, all very good choices. They should all be the respective leaders of their teams, and I think they're all very similar. I would say Godon is my favourite, just because he's shown that consistency in the Britannia Classic and other races recently, and I just kind of, as the French champ, I think he's very suited to this race. Hermans and Laurence are like almost identical riders in my opinion. They're both like lightweight punchers, and I think you could honestly just throw a blanket over both of them and or flip a coin, and either one would be good. You could say that Hermans has got slightly more competition in his squad, with the likes of Zandalo Morisa being here as well, so you're not sure exactly if he's the leader, whereas Laurence has got a bit more certainty about him that Ineos Grenadiers should be all around him. I'm pretty certain about that. Velasco, usually better for Montreal, but again, he could do pretty good here. Tobias Lund Andreasen or Oscar Onley is also in this price range. They should be the leaders for Picnic. Onley is an interesting one. He does have a pretty snappy sprint, but I don't see him being like a top 5, maybe like a 6th to 10th place sort of candidate. And then Honore's got a top 10 in this race last year. You get these kind of wacky people who sometimes pop up into the top 10 who you really don't expect, and it's those differentials that are going to separate a top 500 team from a top 100 team. Zambanini, I think, is a great pick. Probably slightly underrated. He was very good in the Tour of Britain. Sprints really well. He was 10th in this race last year, and I think he's shown some really good form since the Deutschland Tour. I think he's a top 10 for sure, in my opinion, and Bahrain have got a pretty good squad here as well. The 10s, honestly not a big fan of many of these, unless you think that Quentin Pacher will be leading Groupama FDJ. Usually Millard is here, and he does really well in this race. I think he was 3rd last year, but I don't think he is here this year. The 8 credit riders, Costu, in theory, is the best one for Arkea for a top 15, top 20, I suppose. And Lefay's going to go off and sell cheese. Apparently, that's what he's leaving the sport. Rojas actually is a good puncher. We saw that in the Giro, that stage which Pedersen won, if I remember correctly. It was probably like the second week, and Rojas was like top 10. So he is a good puncher. Maybe he could get some freedom here, because Groupama don't have that much of a leader. Maybe Madouas, but more like Rochas has got just as good of a chance, in my opinion. The 6s, you got Barret, who was good in GP Industria, but there's Binney here, so his chances of getting his own opportunity is pretty small. Bananexia, honestly, pretty good choice for 6 credits. Movistar don't really have a leader in this race, and Bananexia should therefore get the nod, I think, to get his own result here. And a 6 credits, that's you don't find many of these riders who are going to have their own leadership. Uaulio, very good in the Tour of Britain, and one who I am for sure putting on for Montreal. and I'm still kind of umming and ahhing as to whether to have him on for Quebec, just because there's Zambanini and Bilbao, and I think that Eualio will be more of a domestique and then might be given more leadership in Montreal. But at 6 credits, you can't go that far wrong with Eualio as well. And you have Antoine Hubi. If they don't go for Lamperty, they might go for him. Noah Isidor's got a pretty fast finish if something goes wrong with Dorian Godon. Alexander Camp is usually quite good in these sorts of circuit races as well, but like the aforementioned Louis Barret, he also has Binyam Gamay on the team, so it's not a certainty he's going to have his own opportunity here. And maybe Tesfazion, although isn't he in some other race at the moment? I swear he did. Did he do Coppa Sabatini today? So he's going to need to get a flight like this evening and jet lag and all that, so probably not him. Tronchon I quite like as well, but they also still have Dorian Godon, who he needs to kind of compete with. And then the 4 credit riders, I think your best ones are to go with assist points. I think maximum you're going to need is 2 of these guys. So I would say go with Drisners and Ajborn Helmos for the assist points on DeLee and Matthews respectively. That's my honest take on it. I think those are the most realistic assist points you're going to get. You could go Henry Van Den Abela if you got more confidence in DeLee. You could stack up with 2 Lotto riders rather than hedging your bets, one with Matthews and one with DeLee. You got Pacquiao here, who thought if you think that Binny's a better choice. But I think generally look towards those assist points. You could go with one of the Canadian national team riders to get him a breakaway, but that's a bit of a lottery and I have no idea which one is going to be better over another. So I'd go for the assist point farming personally. I think that's safer. This is my team at the moment. DeLee, Matthews, Corbin, Strong, Zambanini, Godon, Eualio. I'm pretty happy with it. I could obviously go with Balanexia here as well. But I've got a sneaky feeling that Eualio just looked really good in the Tour of Britain, and even though they say he's going to be a domestique, I'm not fully convinced. I did have Binny in here, and then 2 4s. This was another option that I had. Just going with 4 big, punchy sprinters. Go with the archetypal riders who are going to do well here. But then I thought, how confident am I in Binny? Is Binny finishing 3rd better than getting Godon, Zambanini and Eualio all in the top 15? It's probably not. So I'm kind of between these sorts of teams. I don't have Pogacar in any of my teams at the moment, just because getting him in I'm gonna need to get rid of Matthews or something down to Zambanini, I guess, something like that. I could definitely do that, but I feel more confident spreading my credits out. But I'd be interested to hear what you all have to say about that in the comment section. Are you thinking of a Pogacar style team? Do you think that's the best? Or do you think it's better to spread your credits out and try get, 4 to 6 people who are going to be in the top 10 rather than I don't know, it's tricky. I think that Pogacar teams can definitely still do well in this, but I think it's a lot of credits to put into somebody who's not a guaranteed for victory. It's not like putting Pogacar on for Lombardia where he's going to be breaking away, and there's no real breakaway points either, like those 20 and 10 kilometers to go, just because it's kind of like more of a bunch finish. So I think it's just better to go with the versatile sprinters. But I'd be interested to hear what people's opinions are on that, and also who you're thinking of putting onto your teams. And all that's left to say is to stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Salut!